Beloved TV actor and director Tony Dow died today. He was best known for playing the older brother Wally Cleaver in the iconic series Leave It to Beaver.
Tony Dow was more than television's beloved older brother. He represented a simpler, kinder era. But behind the familiar smile and fame, his life included struggles and surprises few fans ever knew. Best remembered as Wally Cleaver, the ideal teen next door, Tony's real journey was far more complicated, shaped by personal challenges, resilience, and lasting love. Years after his passing, those closest to him have shared a more honest picture of the man behind the character. Today, we uncover Tony Dow's untold story and hear from the woman who stood beside him through it all, Lauren's break of silence. For years after Tony Dow's passing, those closest to him remained largely silent. That changed when his wife of more than 4 decades, Lauren Schulkind, chose to share her memories. Speaking with honesty and love, she revealed a side of Tony that fans rarely saw, offering a deeply personal look at the man behind the beloved television icon. Lauren kind of described their 45-year marriage as this love story that kept getting stronger with time, you know? She talked pretty openly about the pain of losing Tony and how much she misses his kindness, warmth, and steady presence. Her thoughts seemed to nudge fans to remember him not just as Wally Cleaver, but also as a true husband, father, and grandfather with a quiet kind of influence that brushed up against countless lives. And then she went on about caring for Tony while he was ill, saying they found this strength, grace, and acceptance together during his last days. Instead of staying stuck on grief only, Lauren sort of leaned into the love they shared, plus the gratitude she carried for the help from friends, family, and longtime fans. That compassion really helped her get through one of the toughest chapters of her life, even if it didn't feel easy at first. Lauren also sounded determined to keep Tony's legacy where it belonged. She pointed out the traits that shaped him when the spotlight wasn't around: his humility, generosity, humor, and this real, solid character. Her memories built this more complete image of a man whose reach went well beyond television. And by stepping forward, you could say, Lauren gave fans a chance to honor Tony's life in a way that feels more personal. Her words reminded people that even the most familiar public figures have private struggles, lasting relationships, and deeply human stories. So because of her reflections, Tony Dow's legacy keeps living on, not only through the character that made him famous, but through the love, resilience, and compassion that formed the man behind the screen. The unexpected announcement. In July 2022, fans were stunned when a heartbreaking message appeared on Tony Dow's official Facebook page announcing that the beloved actor had died. The emotional post described Tony as a beautiful soul whose kindness and comforting presence had touched millions. Condolences quickly poured in as viewers mourned the man who had played an important role in their childhood memories. But only hours later, the story took an unexpected turn. Tony's manager clarified that the actor was still alive. The announcement had been posted prematurely while Tony was receiving hospice care during his battle with liver cancer. The mistake was later attributed to Tony's wife, Lauren, who was under tremendous emotional stress while caring for her husband. Tony's son, Christopher, and his wife, Melissa, confirmed that he remained alive but was seriously ill and undergoing immunotherapy. They asked fans to remain calm while the family dealt with the painful situation privately. The confusion created an emotional whirlwind for Tony's loved ones, friends, and supporters. Lauren apologized for the mistake, and many people responded with understanding, recognizing the exhaustion and heartbreak she was experiencing during her husband's final days. The false report also revealed how serious Tony's condition had become. Until then, his family had kept much of his health struggle private, protecting both his dignity and their own difficult experience. Suddenly, their personal grief became the focus of worldwide attention. For fans, the incident was a powerful reminder that public figures and their families face the same fear, confusion, and vulnerability as anyone else. The overwhelming response also demonstrated the lasting affection people had for Tony. However, The mistaken announcement was only the beginning of an even more emotional final chapter. The true news of Tony Dow's passing would arrive the following day. The unfolding events also pushed other people who had been through similar public scrutiny to pause and think about how hard it is to juggle privacy and openness in, rough times. It showed this kind of rare, raw instance where grief, hope, and even error got tangled together in a shared public area. And in the middle of all that confusion was Lauren's real, deep love and dedication, a kind of devotion that would soon be spoken out loud for the first time since Tony's actual passing. The premature announcement was really only the first step, not the finish line, in whatever emotional trek came next, for the family and for fans, too. More than just a mistake, that incorrect death notice sort of accidentally set the stage for a sincere, heartfelt reflection from Lauren that would arrive later. It also hinted at how tightly the family stayed together when tragedy hit, and how they handled all the complicated feelings that followed. Backstage, the hurt of losing someone close was immediate and very real, even while the public tried to make sense of the sudden shifts. The real story behind Tony's passing was both uplifting in a strange way and difficult to hold, like it was tearing at the heart a bit. Lauren's silence after the actual loss kept everyone wondering about the private realities behind the public figure's farewell. When she finally broke her silence, it was with a mix of sorrow and gratitude that somehow still felt steady, and it helped people see what kind of strength it took to endure such a profound loss quietly. The earlier false report added extra weight to her later words because it basically showed the emotional roller coaster she had to ride through without much room to breathe. This chapter started a more layered conversation about Tony Dow's life, love, and legacy, and even now, it still resonates. That unexpected announcement, in a way, becomes a doorway for getting to know the man behind Wally Cleaver and the family who loved him fiercely, too. It encourages us to pay closer attention and to look past the surface, because the human experiences underneath are what shape even the most iconic lives. Transitioning from this moment of confusion and heartache, it helps to look back at the early years that shaped Tony Dow into the beloved figure who captured America's heart. Tony Dow's incredible rise. Anthony Lee Dow was born in Hollywood, California, into a family connected to both entertainment and craftsmanship. His mother, Muriel Montrose, was a Senate bathing beauty during the silent film era and worked as a body double for actress Clara Bow. His father, John Stevens Dow, built homes, giving Tony a grounded childhood in Van Nuys, Los Angeles. Although he grew up near Hollywood, Tony never planned to become an actor. That changed in the 1950s when he was cast as Wally Cleaver in the sitcom Leave It to Beaver. His natural charm, calm personality, and clean-cut appearance quickly made him one of television's most recognizable young stars. The series originally aired from 1957 to 1963. While it was not always a ratings leader, it became enormously popular through reruns, introducing Tony to generations of new viewers. At the height of his fame, he received thousands of fan letters and was promoted as a teen idol. Wally Cleaver represented the dependable older brother and ideal American teenager. Tony's warm personality made the character feel genuine, helping the show become a lasting symbol of family values, gentle humor, and classic television. Even with all that fame, Tony didn't really set out at first for a career in acting. It was almost accidental, like he just landed there somehow, and he stayed pretty modest about his stardom through most of his life. The success of Leave It to Beaver gave him a real foundation, yet it also sort of boxed him in, so it became hard to grab varied parts later on. Still, although his young look helped early success a lot, it was more than natural charisma, plus actual acting craft that really made people warm up to him beyond the surface, or whatever you want to call it. And the way Leave It to Beaver kept going longer than many others in syndication, that really says something about how the stories held up. The episodes felt timeless, and so did the performances. Shows like The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet or Father Knows Best slowly faded, but Tony's work kept getting in front of fresh viewers with this effortless kind of consistency. That continued popularity basically locked in his place in television history and somehow kept the fans' affection going for years and years. So yeah, it was a career that started quietly, but ended up leaving a real legacy behind. Tony's family background, sort of growing up in the heart of Hollywood, with parents tied to entertainment and craftsmanship, sort of really gave him a one-of-a-kind perspective on the whole industry. That upbringing mixed imagination with steady values, and somehow that balance kept showing up in his work and his everyday life. Tony's legacy is not only the character of Wally, but also the man who stayed humble while so many people offered lifelong admiration. Even his early years planted those seeds for what came next, and he showed pretty clearly that talent can appear from unexpected places. Even if Tony's first burst of attention was linked tightly to just one role, the rest of his life eventually started to reveal more depth, more layers, more skills, more quiet strengths. His rise to fame was only the start of a bigger story, the kind with plenty of ups and downs that most people didn't see back then. Those early days gave him a stage, but the later choices, plus the hard moments, shaped the actual person behind the role. From this foundation of early success, Tony's career took new directions that expanded his influence beyond the small screen, blending his creativity and love for storytelling in surprising ways. Career beyond the sitcom. When Leave It to Beaver ended, Tony Dow faced the same challenge many child stars encounter, building a career beyond the role that made him famous. While he never became an overnight leading man, he carved out a successful and varied career through determination, adaptability, and a genuine passion for storytelling. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Tony appeared in guest roles on popular television series, including Adam 12, The Mod Squad, Love, American Style, and later Knight Rider. These performances demonstrated his versatility, even if they never matched the cultural impact of Wally Cleaver. Rather than chasing stardom, Tony embraced every opportunity to continue working in television and expand his experience. Away from Hollywood, Tony also served in the California Army National Guard during the Vietnam War era. Assigned as a photographer for the 40th Armored Division's Special Services Unit, his military service marked an important chapter, allowing him to grow both personally and professionally. During the 1970s, Tony explored new directions beyond acting. He worked in construction while studying journalism and filmmaking, preparing for a future that extended beyond appearing on screen. This willingness to reinvent himself reflected a practical mindset and a desire to keep learning throughout his life. One memorable project from this period was the 1977 comedy The Kentucky Fried Movie, where Tony humorously parodied his wholesome television image. By poking fun at his most famous role, he showed that he was comfortable embracing his past while proving he could take on something entirely different. When the new Leave It to Beaver premiered, Tony returned as the older Wally Cleaver, but his contributions went far beyond acting. He directed 5 episodes and wrote 1, becoming an important creative force behind the revival. Although the reboot received mixed reviews, Tony defended its focus on family values and relatable life lessons, believing those themes remained timeless. His talents also flourished behind the scenes on other productions. Tony worked as a producer, writer, visual effects artist, and director on projects including Harry and the Hendersons, Coach, Babylon 5, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. These roles showcased abilities that many viewers never realized he possessed, and proved his career extended far beyond his childhood fame. Throughout these decades, Tony remained grounded despite the unpredictable nature of Hollywood. He continued developing new skills instead of relying solely on nostalgia, earning the respect of colleagues across the industry. He also maintained a lifelong friendship with his Leave It to Beaver co-star Jerry Mathers, a relationship that lasted more than 60 years. Tony Dow's career after Leave It to Beaver was defined by perseverance, creativity, and constant reinvention. Whether acting, directing, writing, or working behind the camera, he refused to be limited by one iconic role. His journey showed that true success isn't measured by a single performance, but by the ability to grow, adapt, and continue creating meaningful work throughout a lifetime. From his broad career ventures, the challenges Tony faced in health and personal life eventually followed, revealing even deeper parts of his story and character, personal battles and health struggles. Although millions knew Tony Dow as the cheerful and dependable Wally Cleaver, his life behind the scenes was far more complex. Beneath the success and public admiration, Tony faced personal battles that tested his resilience and ultimately inspired others through his honesty. In his 20s, Tony began struggling with depression, an issue he spoke about openly at a time when mental health was rarely discussed publicly. Instead of hiding his experience, he chose to help others by producing a self-help video titled "Beating the Blues." Through it, he encouraged people to seek help and reminded viewers that depression could affect anyone, regardless of fame or outward success. His willingness to share his story helped reduce the stigma surrounding mental health and revealed the compassionate person behind the television icon. Alongside these emotional challenges, Tony also dealt with ongoing physical health issues that gradually changed the course of his career. As his health declined, he began stepping away from acting, eventually leaving the entertainment industry in his 40s. Rather than viewing retirement as an ending, Tony embraced it as an opportunity to focus on family, personal well-being, and new creative pursuits that brought him fulfillment. Even after leaving Hollywood, in May 2022, he was diagnosed with liver cancer, but at first, the family kept the news private and he underwent treatment. From time to time, there were updates from loved ones that gave fans just a few glimpses into his fight, including heartfelt requests for prayers and support as he received immunotherapy following his 42nd wedding anniversary with Lauren. Despite how serious everything was, Tony still faced each new situation with humility, determination, and grace. The same kind of strength that had carried him through decades of career shifts also helped him endure his biggest personal trials. During the whole stretch of health issues, his family stayed close, offering steady love and support during the hardest days, the most difficult hours in his life. What made Tony's journey feel especially meaningful was that he refused to let hardship define him. Friends and family described him as warm, encouraging, and genuinely kind, even while he was dealing with his own pain. His quiet courage became a real inspiration to people nearby, showing that resilience often hides not in big, dramatic gestures, but in everyday persistence and stubborn steadiness. Tony Dow's personal struggles revealed a side of him that many fans never really got to see. His willingness to speak about depression, his resolve to meet illness with dignity, and his loyalty to the people he loved turned his legacy into something way more than just television fame. His story reminds us that behind every familiar face, there's a human being with challenges no one else can see, and that true strength isn't measured by dodging hardship. It's measured by meeting it with honesty, compassion, and hope. Even as his health declined, the enduring presence of family was a constant source of strength and love. Marriage and family life. Behind Tony Dow's successful career was a family that remained the foundation of his life. Through fame, personal challenges, and later health struggles, the people closest to him provided the love and stability that mattered most. Tony first married Carol Marie Teresa Marlowe in 1969, and they welcomed their son, Christopher, in 1973. Although the marriage ended in 1980, Tony remained a devoted father. Christopher even followed in his father's footsteps briefly, portraying a young Wally Cleaver in the new Leave It to Beaver. However, he chose a private life away from Hollywood, preferring family over fame. Around the late 1970s, Tony met Lauren Schulkind, a talented mosaic artist from New York, during a McDonald's commercial casting session. Lauren encouraged Tony throughout the audition process, and their connection quickly grew into a lasting relationship. They married on June 16, 1980, beginning a partnership that would last more than 45 years. Lauren embraced Christopher as her own, creating creating a warm and supportive blended family. Together, they built a quiet life centered on love, respect, and shared experiences rather than the spotlight. As the years passed, Tony became a proud grandfather and often celebrated family milestones, treasuring time spent with his children and grandchildren. Their marriage became one of Hollywood's rare, enduring love stories. Lauren stood beside Tony through every stage of life, including his battle with cancer. She later described their relationship as one that only became stronger with time, built on friendship, trust, and unwavering devotion. Her heartfelt tributes after Tony's passing reflected the extraordinary bond they shared. Christopher also spoke movingly about his father, calling Tony not only the best dad he could have asked for, but also a mentor, coach, and role model. His words revealed the quiet influence Tony had within his family, where kindness, patience, and encouragement defined his role far more than celebrity status ever did. Friends and fans seemed to admire Tony and Lauren's relationship for how real it felt, you know? In Hollywood, a lot of marriages get kind of pulled apart by all the spotlight and noise, but theirs stayed steady on genuine affection and that quiet kind of mutual support. Lauren's constant being there became even more crucial during Tony's final years, giving comfort and also a kind of strength when they were dealing with life's biggest, hardest moments, together, not separately. After Tony's passing, Lauren basically took on the responsibility for his legacy, like really held it up. And when she later decided to talk publicly, she gave fans this very personal look into the person behind the well-known television character. Her reflections didn't just point to Tony's accomplishments, but also to his compassion, his modest manners, and his devotion to the people he cared about. And in the end, family was the core of Tony Dow's whole story. Through every win and every tough day, it was that love from Lauren, Christopher, and the rest of his family that kept him going. Sure, audiences will always remember Tony as Wally Cleaver, but the people closest to him remember something even larger. A devoted husband, a warm father, a proud grandfather, and a man whose biggest role was the one he played at home every single day. As Tony's personal world was rooted in family love, his creative expression found new forms in his later years, adding another layer to the legacy he left behind. Artistic passions and later years. As Tony Dow stepped away from the spotlight, he discovered a new creative calling through sculpture. Working primarily with bronze, he created expressive pieces that reflected themes of strength, resilience, and perseverance. Sculpting became far more than a hobby. It gave Tony a renewed sense of purpose and allowed him to continue sharing his creativity in a completely different way. His work soon gained recognition in the art world. In 2008, Tony exhibited his sculptures at the prestigious Carrousel du Louvre in Paris, earning praise for his talent beyond television. One of his best-known works, Unarmed Warrior, was displayed in Paris, demonstrating that his artistic legacy extended well beyond his years as an actor. His successful transition from television to fine art showed a lifelong commitment to learning and creative growth. Although acting was no longer his primary focus, Tony remained connected to the entertainment industry. He continued working behind the scenes as a producer, writer, and director, contributing his experience to a variety of projects. Whether crafting stories for the screen or shaping bronze into meaningful sculptures, he approached every endeavor with the same humility and dedication that had defined his career. Away from public attention, Tony embraced a quieter, family-centered life. Rather than pursuing fame, he found joy in spending time with Lauren, his children, and grandchildren. The occasional glimpse he shared through photos and personal updates reflected a man who valued simple moments, meaningful relationships, and the peace that came from a life well lived. Tony's willingness to reinvent himself, or maybe it was the way he just kept changing, inspired a lot of people who were dealing with shifts in their own lives. His success as a sculptor showed that new interests can surface even later on, and that creativity doesn't really stop after one career. Not even close. Fans liked his guts, you know, how he tried different roads while still staying loyal to who he was. During all of this, Lauren stayed close, and honestly, her support was the biggest thing. They both had that same taste for creativity, so their connection felt steadier, and it pushed Tony to chase his artistic hopes with more confidence. Together, they shaped a life built around love, family, and that personal sense of fulfillment that people talk about but don't always find. Tony also made sure people could see his work through exhibitions and on his personal website, which gave the audience a different view, a more nuanced side of his talent. Those efforts helped reframe who he was, not just the actor from the role of Wally Cleaver, but also a serious artist and a storyteller with range. By the end, Tony Dow's later years seemed defined by growth, imagination, and purpose. His sculptures, the things he accomplished, and his devotion to family all pointed to a man who kept evolving. Sure, millions will always remember him for the part that made him famous, but maybe his strongest legacy is the example he left behind by welcoming change, going after fresh dreams, and living with a kind of quiet grace that doesn't need a spotlight. With his artistic identity firmly established, the final, most tender part of Tony's life story would unfold, marked by love, challenges, and a graceful farewell from those who knew him best. Final days and true passing. Tony Dow's final months were marked by both hardship and unwavering love, as he battled liver cancer surrounded by his closest family. While fans knew he had been facing health challenges, only those nearest to him fully understood the difficult journey he endured. During hospice care, Tony remained surrounded by his wife, Lauren, his son, Christopher, and loved ones who stayed by his side, offering comfort through his final days. Tony passed away on July 27, 2022, at the age of 77. The official announcement came from his son, Christopher, just one day after an earlier, mistaken report of his death had been publicly corrected. That unusual sequence of events made an already heartbreaking time even more emotional for the family and for fans around the world. His loved ones described Tony's final hours as peaceful, with family gathered around him until the very end. Lauren later called Tony the love of her life, reflecting on their marriage of more than 45 years. She spoke of the deep bond they shared and the immense loss she felt after his passing, while expressing gratitude for the life they built together. After those months went by, Lauren kept sharing these heartfelt, kind of reflections about trying to carry on without Tony. She talked about how his kindness felt so real, the humility, the little humor that showed up at just the right times, and the steady character that didn't really waver. She also encouraged people to remember him as a person, not only as the television icon. In a way, her message gave a quieter, more intimate look at the husband, father, and grandfather who sort of gently touched so many lives without making a big show of it. Christopher followed with something equally moving. He honored his father by saying Tony was more than a parent. He described him as a mentor, a coach, and a hero, all in one breath, really. He also shared that it brought him comfort to believe Tony had found peace, and that this idea landed with fans too, as they were grieving alongside the family. Pretty soon, tributes started pouring in from friends, colleagues, and longtime fans. Jerry Mathers, Tony's longtime Leave It to Beaver co-star and friend for more than 6 decades, spoke about him with a lot of warmth, and lots of other admirers reflected on the kind of joy Tony gave to generations of viewers. Tony Dow's passing ended up feeling like a reminder that behind every beloved celebrity, there's this deeply human story made of love, family, and resilience. Even if his life came to a close, the impact he left, through his work, his character, and the people who loved him, keeps inspiring. His last chapter seemed less about fame and more about the lasting strength of family, friendship, and true affection that goes on and on. As the family honored his life and memory, the silence that had held Lauren for so long was slowly ready to be broken, inviting the world into their healing and remembrance. Tony Dow's life was a journey of talent, resilience, and profound love. Remembered today through the heartfelt words of his wife, Lauren. His legacy reminds us to look beyond fame and cherish the human stories that truly define us. If you found this story moving, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives behind the legends. And before you go, continue with the next story now appearing on your screen. You won't want to miss the remarkable legacy waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching.